Good morning, all of you. Today we are going to start the lecture of histology. This is histology of urinary system. Good morning, all of you. Today we start the lecture of histology of urinary system. These are the objectives of the lecture. At the end of the lecture, you should be able to outline the basic organization of the nephron and collecting system in human kidney. Outline the arrangement of renal vasculature in relation to the nephron, and you should know how to describe the structure of renal corpuscle, filtration barrier between blood and urine in the renal corpuscle, and describe briefly the histological appearance of proximal convoluted tubule, distal convoluted tubule, loop of Henle, and collecting tubules and ducts. In addition to that, you should be able to outline the structure of the juxtaglomerular apparatus and describe the structure of the urinary epithelium and describe the ways in which it's adapted for its function, and illustrate the microscopic structure of ureter and bladder and discuss its anatomical adaptations to the functions. This is the basic macroscopic structures, macroscopic appearance of the urinary system. We have two kidneys, two ureters, and bladder. When we see the internal structure of the kidney, there are two distinct parts we can identify in internal view. This is outer cortex and inner medulla, and also the pelvic axial system and the ureter. In addition to that, blood supply to the kidney is given by the renal artery, and venous drainage is by renal vein. Human kidney is made up of 10 to 18 lobes at birth. But with human development, these lobes are disappeared and become a single lobe. An adult, the kidney size is usually 10 to 12 centimeters. As you all know, nephron is the functional and structural unit of the kidney. At birth, there are 1 million of nephrons in each kidney. The nephron has two main parts. These are renal corpuscle, which is the combination of glomerulus and the Bowman capsule, and collecting tubules. The collecting system carries urine out of the nephrons for excretion. Nephron is responsible for removing waste from the body. Each kidney is composed of 1 million of nephrons, as I told earlier, and 85% of nephrons are cortical nephrons deep in the renal cortex, and the remaining 15% are juxtamedullary nephrons, which lie in the renal cortex close to the renal medulla. The glomerulus has high pressure and it is the site of blood filtration, and Bowman capsule is funnel-like structure, and each nephron has its own independent blood supply by renal arterioles and veins. For each nephron, an afferent arteriole feeds a high pressure capillary bed which is called the glomerulus, and the proximal end of the tubule that surrounds the glomerulus and catches the filtered fluid is the glomerular capsule or Bowman's capsule. The glomerulus and Bowman's capsule together form the renal corpuscle. A filtered fluid caught by the glomerular capsule travels through the rest of the tubule to the proximal convoluted tubule, loop of Henle, distal convoluted tubule, and later collecting ducts. Blood exits the glomerulus into the efferent arteriole, and this efferent arteriole then forms a secondary capillary network around the tubule. These are called the peritubular capillaries. For juxtamedullary nephrons, the portion of the capillaries that follow the loop of Henle deep into the medulla is called the vasa recta. You can see in this picture the transverse lines indicate the vasa recta. As discussed earlier, the renal corpuscle consists the glomerulus and the glomerular capsule. The glomerulus is a high-pressured, fenestrated capillary with large holes. These holes are called as fenestrations in between the endothelial cells. The glomerular capsule captures the filtrate created by the glomerulus and directs this filtrate to the proximal convoluted tubule. The outermost part of the glomerular capsule is a simple squamous epithelium, and it transitions over the glomerulus as uniquely shaped cells. These cells are called as podocytes, and these cells have food processes. Food processes that covers the glomerular capillaries. A thin basement membrane lies in between the glomerulus and the podocytes. As discussed earlier, the renal corpuscle consists the glomerulus and the glomerular capsule. This is the glomerular filtration membrane. The glomerulus is a high-pressured fenestrated capillaries with large holes. These holes are called as fenestrations in between the endothelial cells. And the glomerular capsule captures the filtrate created by the glomerulus and directs this filtrate to the proximal convoluted tubule. The outermost part of the glomerular capsule is lined by simple squamous epithelium, and it transits over the glomerulus and uniquely shaped cells. These cells are called as podocytes, and these cells have food processes also. So a thin basement membrane lines in between the glomerular endothelium and the podocytes. These podocyte food processes interdigitate and form filtration slits. This is the electron microscopic appearance of the glomerular filtration membrane. Look at this square, in central square. You can see the basement membrane, and on the basement membrane capillary endothelial cells you can see, and the Bowman capsule area you can see the podocytes with podocyte food processes. In between these podocyte food processes there are filtration slits, and in between capillary endothelial cells there are small spaces. These are called fenestrations. The juxtaglomerular apparatus regulate the renal blood flow and glomerular filtration rate via renin-angiotensin-aldosterone system. The specialization of the glomerular afferent arteriole and the distal convoluted tubule of the same nephron. These juxtaglomerular apparatus have three components. Macula densa cells of distal convoluted tubule and juxtaglomerular cells of afferent arteriole and extraglomerular mesangial cells. As I told earlier, the juxtaglomerular apparatus is a specialized structure formed by the distal convoluted tubule and the glomerular afferent arteriole. It is located near the vascular pole of the glomerulus, and its main function is to regulate blood pressure and the filtration rate of the glomerulus. The macula densa cells are the collection of specialized epithelial cells that are in the distal convoluted tubule, and these cells can detect the sodium concentration of the fluid in renal tubules. In response to that elevate the sodium level, the macula densa cells trigger the contraction of afferent arterioles, thereby reducing the blood flow to the glomerulus and glomerular filtration rate. The juxtaglomerular cells that are derived from smooth muscle cells of the afferent arteriole, and these cells secrete the renin when blood pressure in the arteriole falls. The renin increases the blood pressure via renin-angiotensin-aldosterone mechanism, and the extraglomerular mesangial cells, these cells also called as Lacey cells, and these cells are flat and elongated cells located near the macula densa, and their function remains unclear. Let's discuss about the renal tubules. The proximal convoluted tubule is longest and mostly convoluted and confined to the renal cortex. Distal convoluted tubule is shorter and less convoluted than proximal convoluted tubule, and loop of Henle, it has two parts, thick ascending limb and thin descending limb, which involve for counter current mechanism. At the end of the lecture, you should know the histological appearance of the renal cortex. The renal cortex has renal corpuscle, juxtaglomerular apparatus, proximal convoluted tubule, distal convoluted tubule, and vessels. This is the histological appearance of the renal cortex. You can see the dark purple colored area indicate the renal corpuscle, which comprises Bowman capsule and the nephron. This is the large image of renal corpuscle. The outer layer of the Bowman capsule is formed by flat, simple squamous epithelial cells, and the numerous nuclei in the glomerulus are those of capillary endothelial cells, mesangial cells, and the podocytes. You can see the juxtaglomerular apparatus which lying just outside the Bowman's capsule and the glomerulus at the junction where the afferent and efferent arterioles enter and leave the Bowman capsule. The proximal convoluted tubule is lined by simple cuboidal epithelium, and these cells have prominent brush border with tall microvilli, and has more organelles, round nuclei with prominent nucleoli. These microvilli create a large surface area to maximize the absorption, secretion. The most essential function of this portion of the nephron is done by the proximal convoluted tubule. These cells actively transport ions across their membranes, so they possess a high concentration of mitochondria in order to produce sufficient ATP. The distal convoluted tubule, like the proximal convoluted tubule, it is formed by simple cuboidal epithelium, but it is shorter than proximal convoluted tubule. And also these cells are not as active as those in proximal convoluted tubule, and therefore fewer microvilli on the apical surface. Look at this carefully. You can see clearly the glomerulus. A indicates the glomerulus and B is Bowman capsular space. C is the outer layer of the Bowman capsule, which is lined by the simple squamous epithelium. D indicates the proximal convoluted tubule. It has more microvilli than the distal convoluted tubule and dark cytoplasm due to more organelles. And E indicates the distal convoluted tubule that have less microvilli than distal proximal convoluted tubule and paler cytoplasm due to less organelles than distal proximal convoluted tubule. Look at this picture carefully. You can see the glomerulus and the Bowman capsule, proximal convoluted tubule and distal convoluted tubules. A indicate the glomerulus and B is the Bowman capsular space. C is the outer layer of Bowman capsule, which is lined by the simple squamous epithelium. D is the proximal convoluted tubule, which is lined by the simple cuboidal epithelium with prominent brush border and tall microvilli. And these cells, cytoplasm of these cells are darker due to more organelles. And E indicates the distal convoluted tubule. These distal convoluted tubules are lined by the simple cuboidal epithelium, but these cells have very less microvilli and paler cytoplasm due to fewer organelles than distal convoluted tubule. When we look at the renal medulla, in histological appearance, we can see the loop of Henle, which have this loop of Henle has thick ascending limb, which is lined by the simple cuboidal epithelium, and thin descending limb, which is lined by simple squamous epithelium. And also collecting tubules. These cells of the tubule are lined by simple cuboidal epithelium, and the collecting duct also simple columnar epithelium. Here you can see the histological appearance of renal medulla. It has thick ascending limb of loop of Henle because of simple cuboidal epithelium. The wall of thick ascending limb is more thicker than the thin limb of loop of Henle, which is lined by simple squamous epithelium. And these tubes in this cross section, these tubes diameter are more or less same. And the collecting tubules, which is lined by the simple cuboidal epithelium, are have bit larger diameter than the loop of Henle. And the collecting ducts. The epithelium of collecting ducts are simple columnar epithelium, and these collecting ducts are bit larger than the loop of Henle and collecting tubules. Let's discuss about the conducting passage of urinary system. The urine produced by the kidneys are traveled through the renal pelvis and ureter, then bladder, lastly into the urethra. Transitional epithelium or the urothelium is the epithelial cell lining of the conducting passage of urinary system except few areas. You can see the transitional epithelium lies on the basement membrane, and this histological picture you can see the transitional epithelium of the bladder. In relaxed state, we can see the rounded appearance of the cells at the surface, and when the bladder is filled with urine or the bladder is distended, we can't clearly see the rounded appearance of the cells at the surface, and these cells become flattened and elongate. As I told earlier, with the exception of lower part of the urethra, conducting passage of the urinary system is lined by the transitional epithelium. This transitional epithelium has two types of cells, stratified cells and the umbrella. Stratified cells have 3 to 6 layers, and the number of layers being greatest when the epithelium is least distended. And stratified cells involved to allow stretching and prevent leakage of the urine, and also protection to the distinct structure. Umbrella cells are the rounded cells that are on the top of stratified cells and that maintain the impermeability of the epithelium to urine even when at full stretch, and prevent water from being drawn through the epithelium into hypertonic urine. These umbrella cells have large ovoid with round nuclei with eosinophilic cytoplasm. Some of these cells are nucleate or multinucleate. Let's discuss about the ureter, which is a muscular tube that carries urine from the kidney to bladder by peristalsis. This is the histological appearance of the ureter. The ureter epithelium lining of the ureter is transitional epithelium. Thick fibroelastic lamina propria lies below this epithelium, and there are no mucosal or submucosal glands and no submucosa in the ureter. There is a layer of smooth muscle outside of the mucosa. The upper two-thirds of ureter has two layers of smooth muscle, inner longitudinal layer and the outer circular layer. The lower one-third of the ureter has three layers, inner longitudinal, middle circular and outermost longitudinal layer. Here you can see clearly the epithelial cell lining of the ureter is transitional epithelium. Below the transitional epithelium there is a layer lamina propria thick fibroelastic structure, and you can't see the mucosal or submucosal glands, and no submucosal layer of the ureter. And there is a layer of smooth muscle outside of the mucosa, and these have in upper two-thirds of uh, these have two layers of smooth muscle, and lower one-third has three layers of smooth muscle, and outermost part is the adventitial layer, and which has fibroelastic connective tissues with blood vessels, lymphatics, and nerves. Let's discuss about the histological appearance of the bladder. The microscopic structure of the urinary bladder wall organizes into lining epithelium, lamina propria, muscularis propria, and the adventitia. The lining epithelium of the urinary bladder is also called as urothelium or the transitional epithelium, and lamina propria is the suburothelial layer separating the urothelium and the underlying muscularis propria. The muscularis propria, also known as the detrusor-muscle layer, which consists of three layers: inner longitudinal, middle circular, and the outer longitudinal layer. These layers are well defined around the neck of the urinary bladder. The body of the bladder has higher smooth muscle content when compared with the trigone area, reflecting a well-developed network of fibroblast of lamina propria and the muscularis mucosa. The serosal layer of the bladder is very thin connective tissue layer that covers the bladder dome, and it continues with the peritoneal layer of the abdominal wall. And outermost adventitial layer is the loose connective tissue layer. It serves as the bladder's outer layer in areas of the bladder where there is no serosa. Female urethra is 4 centimeters long, and the epithelium changes its type from above downwards as in male urethra. It is around 20 centimeters long, and has three parts: prostatic urethra, membranous, and the spongy urethra. The prostatic part of the urethra is lined by the transitional epithelium, and the rest of the urethra is lined by stratified or pseudostratified columnar epithelium, and the external urethral meatus is lined by stratified squamous epithelium. Thank you for listening.